Hello and welcome to Skeptic Hangout, the place where we sit back, relax, and chit chat about intriguing and sometimes controversial topics through the lens of skepticism. I'm Josh, joined by our usual Brit Richard, and today we're joined by a guest from recovering from religion, Helen Greene, which is a good coincidence because today we're talking about recovering from religion. Skeptic Hangout, recovering from religion. All right, Helen, you come from recovering from religion. Tell us a little bit about recovering from religion.
Yes, I'm an ambassador and support group leader. I host our podcast with our wonderful communication instructor, Cara Griffin. That is also on secular sexuality with the ACA. So we do many things over recovering from religion, but our main mission is to offer hope, healing, recovery for those dealing with um, religious doubt, dealing with issues of non-belief, and just providing support and help for those that are dealing with that process of deconstruction, or just dealing with something that just doesn't square for them in their brain. We don't try to deconvert. We believe that one of our policies is that everyone comes to their own conclusions on their own, and we want to trust our clients to do that on their own. We don't want to teach people what to think, but how to think. So basically what you can do is you can contact either our chat line, which you can go to www.recoveringfromreligion.org, or you can call in at 1-866 I doubt it. And basically what you can do is when you either call in or chat in 24/7, a trained agent is going to be there to listen to whatever you want to talk about. We are not there to offer advice. We just offer resources and a listening ear. So basically what I kind of say about it is that we do street epistemology with with emotional support. Because a lot of people that are going through this process, as soon as they express any sort of doubt, or they start questioning things, they automatically receive pushback, or you should doubt your doubts, or they're not offered a sympathetic ear that's just going to go, well, why doesn't that seem right to you? And well, here's another perspective, and offer a resource, and letting them vent. Or the thought of leaving religion can cause big disruptions to their lives with family, friends, employment. We work with the clergy project because there's a lot of people behind the pulpit that don't believe anymore, but that's the only training that they have. And starting a new life outside of religion is too daunting and too scary. So we try to work with many organizations that we can to offer those resources and help the people that really need them as they're going through the process of deconstruction and getting out, even if they don't leave religion, but they might stay because they like the social aspect of it, or they might believe in a higher power, but they don't believe in the structure of religion anymore. But they want to stay in it because they get kind of benefit, but they just want to square some things in their own head. We want to, wherever people are on their journey, we just want to be a resource for them and a help for them wherever they're going.
Do most people come in with any hostility towards it, or is it mostly vulnerable people? You're not getting a atheist experience type phone calls going on, I assume.
We occasionally get people that are angry, and I understand that anger because I think those of us who have been through, I didn't go through an angry atheist phase. I was Catholic, then I went to paganism. And then through paganism, I learned skepticism, especially when I went to college. And then things started really breaking down because I started taking psychology, and I was I can't trust my brain. Okay. And then as I started going through the skepticism process, I just was like, oh, it's all bullshit. I don't know anything, and this is just all stories that we're telling ourselves because we're trying to make sense of the world. And this was all created before science and all that type of stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I just let everything go. But some people, like, they have a lot of anger and resentment. And I think where my experience is a little bit different is that I didn't have a very puritanical upbringing where some people did. Or if you're a member of the queer community, or you were repressed from like getting an education or really understanding life, and your social circles were very limited, and opportunities were very limited, and it might have been a very hostile environment, or you just felt like you were lied to and don't know how to square that in your brain, like your family didn't intentionally lie to you.
No,
it is a process that they believed that, whatever God and religious structure they believed in, really believed that they thought they were doing good because they thought they were saving your soul, and they wanted you to be a good person. This was like the moral basis for how they live their lives and stuff like that. And it's all that indoctrination, brainwashing kind of shit that happens over generations. And once they are confronted with that, they're angry.
and it makes
And the
sense.
easiest thing to do is to blame your family, blame the structure,
Like I don't come from like a heavily religious family. I have parents that believed in stuff, but they would never like try to indoctrinate me. So I'm like a lifelong atheist. I guess you could say maybe when I was 5, I had slight beliefs in God, but it was like I didn't know any of this Jesus crap, probably because my dad was Jewish. But so it was all abstractions. And then like I don't think you could really say I was ever religious. So like anytime I hear about people believing these things for a longest time, it's like you're kind of an idiot. But there's indoctrination is something that when you haven't been, and I'm sure there's probably something I've been indoctrinated into, I don't know, but indoctrination is something that like people that haven't had to deal with it don't really understand quite as well. So it's good. I've learned about resources like recovering from religion that is helping people deal with that. And then I realized, oh, I was being a pig-headed asshole the whole time, giving people crap for believing in a God. And it's good that resources like yours are out there for people that are actually dealing with problems like that.
What line is the kind of for when you're speaking to people who call a helpline and things, where, because in our community a lot we challenge people, and I personally try and challenge people with a little bit of compassion where possible, because people, you don't get the preachers, I'm guessing, so much, whereas we tend to get the preachers. And there's got to be a kind of line between when you're addressing people who are preaching at you, to try and get them to think, but do it compassionately. And a lot of people in our community do it aggressively. And because maybe I don't come from a religious background, and when people are coming from a religious background, especially if they've just newly deconverted, they can be very passionate and they can be very angry about it. And when they come and challenging current believers, they do it sometimes do it in a very, very aggressive way. And what do you think is the line between having that aggression towards somebody and that compassion? And how do you think, as a deconverted person who does hold those feelings, how do you think we can encourage those people to engage more compassionately with currently religious people who are just questioning the beliefs?
Well, I like you and I talked about this before, where we're kind of coming from this place of, I don't want to fight with you. Like if we're just coming from a different perspective, like I'm an atheist, I don't know if a God exists, and as far as I know from everything that reality is telling me, there is not a God. If I'm proven wrong in that, I believe in a God, but if I'm going to worship it, that's a different thing, but as of right now, there's nothing in reality that's telling me that a God exists. But to the other person, if a God exists, like I have plenty of people in my life that believe in gods.
Yeah.
but they're reasonable, kind people. And on this particular point, we agreed to disagree. That's fine. I'm, if you want to question my skepticism and ask me questions of how I came to my conclusion, I am more than willing to share that story with you. But it is not my goal to be like, well, I'm going to fight with you because I think you're a dum-dum for believing in a sky daddy, because I used to believe in a lot of stupid stuff because I didn't have another perspective. I didn't have the ability to break things down and be skeptical about my own thoughts and what I was taught before, and be skeptical of authority and all those things, because I didn't have the tools. And even still, like I always say, like I don't know shit. Like I always like I know things, but I'm always willing to learn more, because I've been proven time and time again I'm wrong about a lot of things, and that's okay.
I think the
But
smartest people realize that they're idiots in most concepts, and they
right,
have a lot to learn.
exactly. Like, I have a good like baseline of certain things, but like like I have a good understanding of psychology and philosophy and certain things and stuff like that. But a lot of things, the people that really do the hard work, that like if you are an expert on physicists, like
The physicists themselves,
physicists and stuff like that. Like I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Like I have like an idea, like I'll watch like a science program and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And I have like some kind of understanding. But if I was trying to explain it to somebody else, I'd be like, you just need to watch the video, because I can't explain it.
I read one of Neil deGrasse Tyson's books this year. I'm like, everything makes sense while he's saying it. And then like, if you asked me to regurgitate it back to you,
right.
I would have no clue.
But like, I think the difference is that like, you have to recognize that the person that you're talking to is a human being. And we tend to forget that, especially us in the internet culture. Like, if I'm looking at someone like on the Zoom call, and, if I'm looking at someone face to face, even virtually, I tend to adjust my attitude, because I get to hear your tone of voice. I get to, there's an ability to build up a camaraderie and familiarity, even if it's just even if it is a new person, because you get an idea for the person is. But a lot of people, they just hear a voice online, or they just see whoever's in their Twitter comments, and they forget that there is another person. And it's on both ends, and I'm not saying that I've been guilty of it myself, and I got reminded by one of my religious friends that like, we've been friends for a long time, you're taking this a long way. And I was like, you know what, I'm right. You're representative of the things that I'm fighting against, other than remembering you are your own person with your own experiences and your own ideas. And we have to be reminding ourselves of to kind of kick that compassion in, that even if someone doesn't think the way that we do, doesn't make them a bad person, unless they're like a bigot. Then you're like, well, you're an asshole. This is not something we're going to agree on. But for most parts, like if we're talking philosophy and religion and atheism and stuff like that, like those are just different ideas. And we can't, and like those ideas lead to bad places. But if you're just having a conversation with someone going like, well, I don't think a loving God would send somebody to hell, and having conversation about that, because that's what we get a lot with RFR, are people like trying to square things. Like they meet someone from a different religion, or an atheist, or they've been going to church, and they've been like, well, the church has been telling me that, being gay is wrong, but I have gay feelings, or my child has gay feelings, and they're trying to work that stuff out. Or like, why I'm like, well, I have a fear of hell, and trying to square those things. And it's a lot of deconstruction that we're trying to work with, because a lot of people they've never hit that wall before, because usually when they hit that wall, they'll go to their pastor, and then the pastor will give them some whatever regurgitated shit that they were taught during seminary school or whatever it was. And we're trying to be like, well, how do you think about it? And we because a lot of us is just asking questions and helping them logic it through. you
And
know?
that's hard to do because I've tried to be like the more compassionate person in the conversation, but there's always from the abstractions of why would a loving God send people to hell? I can be more calm about that, but when it starts working into like real world issues, I have a hard time getting the patience and getting the questions across compassionately. I think one of my first interactions with you was when I was arguing with somebody on your Facebook page about the church allowed in school, or the praying allowed on the football
Yep.
field.
Yep.
And I pushed back hard about the privilege, and I didn't think I was crossing any lines, but I definitely was, because that person was getting angry at me for pointing out that she had privilege. But being a Christian in America, you're gonna have privilege. So like I was able to attack that in make her think about it type of way. I kind of made it or double back on herself and like feel like she's being attacked when I was only trying to point out an area where she may have been more well off than other people in this country are. So like I
Well,
don't know. It's a
and I
skill that I have
appreciate
not
you
acquired.
like checking in with me. And I have this thing, it's like, as long as nobody's getting personally insulting, like calling people idiot, like using name calling, like you can have a debate. And I was just, but like, because she was getting offended, like personally offended, I was like, okay, I'm like, I love you. It's fine, you know. But the thing is, though, I also have like, if anyone knows me, knows that I am an atheist activist. Like I am pushing back against bad ideas. Because bad ideas lead to bad things.
Yeah.
You know, and I see the damage because I'm talking to people every week about the damage that religion has done to them. I can't afford always to be like, well, you know, you have a different opinion, but the thing is, so I'm like, your opinion is causing harm to people, and that's something that I have a hard time squaring with sometimes, because like the reason why I like the work that I do with recovering from religion is because these people are already doubting. They're already hitting those walls and they just want someone to talk to. I don't have to go out you know, if someone calls into the atheist experience or talk heathen or something, they want to debate.
Yeah.
They think that they've come up with the best argument and nobody's heard of it before, where everybody's heard it. like you're not reinventing the wheel, guy. We've all heard these arguments, like you're not reinventing the wheel. But the thing is, though, but there might be somebody who's turning in for the first or second time that has never heard this argument. We've heard it. We've heard it over and over again, but you're trying to get that person that's never heard that argument, and they're dealing with a situation where religion might be causing them harm, or they're dealing with that cognitive dissonance and they're trying to make sense of it. And that's why we do what we do, because we've heard these arguments over and over again. Like I tend to do my work through recovering from religion and be on the more compassionate side of it, because I don't want to really debate someone. I want to help them work it through.
That's a good,
you know, and I admire people that do the debating, because they're not debating so much for the person on the other end to agree with them. They're having the argument. So the logical argument makes sense for the person that's listening to the debate, going, oh, that kind of makes sense. Because that's what happens to a lot of us. We hear that conversation and we go, oh, I didn't think about it that way before. And then that starts the domino effect.
Even as an atheist, I've had arguments broken down for me by people that are more well-versed in philosophy, and like, oh, that's how you tackle that specific argument. Now that I've been listening to it for like 10 years on ACA shows and stuff like that, it's all commonplace, but it took a little while to learn a lot of that.
Yeah, we do get there are a lot of callers on the ACA, well, on all the calling shows, not just the ACA ones, that a long-time listeners who were religious and want to, they listen to the shows so they can better their own religious arguments, because it's a good place to learn how to argue. But I wanted to ask you about the demographic of people, because you're a worldwide organization.
Yeah.
And what's the kind of demographic of religions that call into you? Do you get a lot of like Islamic callers and Hindu callers and that sort of thing?
We get mostly American evangelicals. If I was going to say what the majority of the calls are, because it's just the population. but we do get Islamic callers. We do get Jewish callers. If our Islamic callers do call in, we highly encourage them to use a VPN. And that they hide their identity, because a lot of these countries, if you are questioning and you contact us, you could be facing some very dire consequences. So we want to make sure everybody is safe. We have an online community also as well for people, like if you're Muslim or Catholic or Jehovah's Witness or Scientologists or whatever religion, whatever bullshit you left or you're working through, you have an online community, but you have to be 16 or older to join it, because we do get into some more mature conversations, and we want to make sure everybody's vetted and they're a little bit more mature to handle those conversations and things like that. Like on the Discord server, you can be 13. On the ACD atheist community of Austin Discord, like you can be 13 years old, and we're still cautious. Like, we like if someone gets a little bit more like sexual, or the conversation gets a little bit more adult, we're like, hey, like you're at a 17, let's bring you down to a 13, and that type of stuff too, because we have to remind ourselves that there are young people that are going through this too, and we want to be open to them, because those honestly, if you don't have to be like 38 years old when I was going through this shit to work it all out, be great. Like my kids don't understand it because I raised them to be atheists, and they just like they'll talk to me about like religious friends that they have and stuff like that, and they cannot relate. I'm like, because you weren't raised religious. You can't understand the mindset. I can understand the mindset because I was there.
Like I said earlier, I have like an abstract idea of it, but I'll never fully be able to comprehend what they're going through. It's a very different kind of life. It's like it's almost like they grew up in alternate realities, and with the religious thing, because they very much had a metaphysical reality where magic happens, and the rest of us grew up where no magic existed, and even if the magic was just in their head, it was real to them, kind of thing. So it's definitely hard to wrap my head around it, and me trying right now is probably saying a lot of incorrect things.
I think also too that like for those like I've gone through because I went from the Catholic Church and I went into paganism, and like I always say, I'm like, I left the religion, but I didn't leave the magical thinking, because that took longer.
Well, I believed in like ghosts and stuff before, and I wasn't religious.
Yeah, or you believe in like like body possession, or like or there's like spirits around us, or there's an alternate reality that we can't tap into. Like I've had people that thought that like what a writer like Tolkien or were tapping into other realities, and they were writing about it. Like all types of like weird shit people try to explain how certain things exist in the world, where we're all just people do people things, and some people have different ideas about people things, and they write about it through metaphor or whatever it is. It's fine. Like I just started reading the Similarian, and I'm just like, oh my god, like my husband said it reads like the Bible, and it does.
It's the best religious book ever written.
Right. It's good though. I'm like enjoying it, because I'm just like, that's really cool. Because like my pagan self like really loves all that shit. Like I love the idea of like multiple gods and all these, because it filters back to human psychology and us like trying to figure out how the world worked. So on that metatextual level, I find it very fascinating, like how people came up with myths and that type of stuff. Like my pagan heart, like, as an atheist, my pagan heart like loves all that shit. I love mythology, and like I think that's why you got into studying religion also too. Like where do people come up with these ideas, and how does it contextualize their lives, and how do they, like, because of these philosophies and the way that they view the world, like why through history did this kind of take on, and why do people why did so many people believe in like this certain deities at this time, and how did it evolve into the world that we are in today? Like all that stuff's really fucking fascinating, because we're fascinating. We're weird mofos. So
that's
the way I look at it.
Certainly my angle on religion, and has always been kind of, why do people believe? what they believe is. That's always fascinated me, this kind of psychology behind belief and not just religious belief, but any kind of supernatural belief that people might hold, and why they kind of lean towards that. And of course, there's a vast array of different reasons. Some people are just indoctrinated into it and kind of brought up with that belief as though it was a real thing, and other people kind of mature into it. If you can mature into that belief as they're growing, it's their way of kind of looking at the world and finding the place in the world, and it is a whole fascinating area.
Like, especially if you look at, like, you know, we're very diverse, and like we're very Christian over here, but there's all these different denominations of like Christianity and stuff like that. But like if you look at like a whole nation like India, which is like, you know, very much into Hinduism, like you'll see some, you know, offshoots of like Buddhism, but Buddhism that's incorporated Hinduism and all these different offshoots and stuff like that. Like a whole culture of people that are like, these are our gods, and this, we've been worshiping them for like 3,000 years and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, that to me is super interesting, like how much the religion is in the culture, you know, especially cultural that's so different from mine living in the United States, because we have this sort of weird relationship with religion. Like we want to be independent, and we're very secular in some things that we do, but we have this like religious underbelly that exists in the United States, you know. And it's a very weird thing where if like the religion is a part of the state, like in like especially Islamic communities and stuff like that, that is a very different thing than how we are in the United States. And I find that type of stuff really interesting as well, as like how much does the state influence the religion, and at what level do the people, are they doing because they're actual believers, or is it a part of the state? And that type of stuff I find also very fascinating, you know, just because, you know, human beings are weird. We're weird, and right. I like, and our brains are weird, and how we're indoctrinated, and how the way we think about ourselves in the world is weird. And I want to know about all the weird stuff.
And sometimes people choosing kind of indoctrination, what you were talking about, where like you're getting Hindu in my peanut butter kind of thing, was like, it was basically like people can sometimes. I like this little thing here. I don't like this little thing. So I'll take this from here. And then you just kind of combine the religions a little bit. I know people that shop around for religions that fit their point of view. Like they didn't like this church, so it can't be right just because it didn't fit what their personality likes. They find one that fits their personality, and it's suddenly that's what they hear it over and over again, and they believe that because it fits their personality. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but there's just like the way that we can even choose to indoctrinate ourselves is kind of weird sometimes.
It is very interesting how we don't realize how much our environment influences. Like we feel that we're making independent decisions outside influence, because it feels like like I'm going to get philosophical, but like it feels like a choice. But sometimes you're just, because of the way your brain is wired, and the way you're raised, and certain parts of your personality, it feels like a choice, but really you're like, this is familiar and comfortable, so I'm going to go here because this makes sense. This is comforting. It feels like a choice, but it's a pattern that your brain recognizes, and you're like, that pattern is familiar to me, and I'm going to go with that pattern.
Just like lights up the right parts of the brain.
Yeah, it
like,
lights up the right parts. Yeah, and I think that, you know, because I can definitely, if I look back at certain parts of my life where I felt like I was making active choices, and then I kind of dissect myself and go, oh no, that wasn't an independent choice, that was influence. Okay. You know, it's just because our brains are weird. Yeah. You know,
we're not made to be logical. Some of us have found our way out into logic, and some of us don't even have any interest in logic. We like what feels good to us or sounds good to us. And I think that's the way most human brains are wired to go. So like we're open to the
We are not Spock.
No.
I'm just gonna say we are not Spock.
No, and like even me trying to be logical most of the time, I'd say my emotional part of my brain is way louder than the logical part. You just got to like pay more attention to that logical part of the brain than the emotional part.
We
It
have no
gets people in
choice to be emotional. And I think I think that's a lot of, again, a lot of people in our community kind of think that now they've deconstructed, or whether they've deconstructed or never been religious, they come in and they kind of think, I am an atheist. I am a logical being. But atheism and skepticism aren't the same thing. Atheism and critical thinking aren't the same thing. And we work on emotion. Our brains are emotional, and we have to kind of introduce that critical thinking and introduce skepticism, and kind of work alongside it and work with it and work at it. And we all have to do that. We don't have an atheist doesn't have a superior kind of. We don't have a box we can stand on that elevates us above religious people when it comes to how our brains work. Our brains work in the same way. It's the way we direct them that's the important point.
And I think also, like, that's a good point, because like there is this kind of dismissive attitude in the atheist community. If you're religious,
we mod some
even
groups, we know.
like even if you are like well versed as a religious person, like in like even a scientific subject, like let's say you're really good in like microbiology, like your shit, but if you're religious, that doesn't matter. All the study that you've done and stuff, like, but why I believe in a God? And then it's like, why you believe in God? You believe in microbiology, you done all the work, blah, blah, like you're a scientist. And I'm just like, it doesn't discount the fact that they have their PhD in a certain form of microbiology. It does not excuse that. They just happen to believe in a God. It's fine. Just
those are
two
completely separate things. That's so annoying, because of like I hear so many atheists, or I read so many atheists, because it's mostly on forums.
Me too.
Dismiss them like all deists are idiots. And no, most of them are smarter than me, at least. But they just have to compartmentalize. I didn't say it right slow either, but you kind of figured out what word I was trying to say.
Yeah, I got you, man.
They don't use the same level of evidence for the God claim that they do for everything else, but they can't. It's because you can't actually study God, so you can't actually do scientific studies on your imagination or what you think your God is doing, because that's completely beyond the realm of science. But they can get expertise on things that are testable and repeatable within their scientific expertise. So it's like two completely different areas. One area they should definitely be dismissing out of hand because there's no good evidence for it, but the scientific area, the fact that they were able to do that and still believe in God doesn't mean that they don't have some good knowledge for you.
And they'll tell you that they believe it on faith, that they will, a lot of them will admit that, like, I don't have evidence for this, but I believe it on faith, and that's fine. Do I agree with them? No, because I don't think that's a good way to make choices about living in the world. But at the same time, as long as they're a good person,
oh yeah,
I don't fucking care. It's like, are you a good person? Are you like, are you like going to work, taking care of your family, kind to people in the community? Like, fine. If you want to believe in your sky daddy, believe in your sky daddy.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Most of my friends are theists, so like I have no
most
problem.
Of my friends are theists too. So
they're mostly good people. Some of my atheist friends are assholes, but I like them anyways. But for the most part,
especially Richard. Richard's such an asshole.
Yeah, he's a problem. He's got that English snobbery all the time going on.
I know, it's just everywhere. But like, that's the thing though, like, I don't care what your religion is, as long as you're a kind person. Like, are you kind? Are you doing like, I don't even need you to volunteer or anything, because like people are lazy, but like, are you a decent human being? Like, you're doing as least harm in the world. Like, even if your religion motivates you to volunteer and like take care of people, I think that's wonderful.
That is good.
Because that is humanism. You are taking care of your fellow humans. Awesome. If you do it through a religious lens, that's great. I love that. Just when people use religion to be a fucking asshole, or atheism to be a fucking asshole, that's when I have problems, because I'm like, no, you cannot use your philosophical beliefs or lack thereof to be dickheads, because you're affecting other people by being a dickhead. And that's
I think it's easier in a lot of senses to talk to the kind of religious people who haven't really thought about it, or are coming to you for the first time, or like we get a lot of people who listen to the shows and are interested and who call into the ACA shows, at least because they're interested in kind of having these conversations and exploring it. I think it's a lot easier talking to someone like that than somebody who is, like an apologist type of person who thought about it and who's trying to construct arguments to defend religion, and they're actively thinking about it. And in a lot of those cases, there seems very little interest in actually wanting the mind change. They're not having these conversations in order to learn anything or in order to hear a different perspective. They're having the conversations in order to strengthen their arguments and look at where sometimes they look at it, even the flaws in their own thinking, so they can try and plaster over that for future conversations. And I've seen that a lot with apologists. They'll have conversations. They'll be shown to be wrong. They'll kind of scurry away into the little corner, and then they'll come back and they'll have strengthened that part of their argument the next time they talk to somebody. And I think it's a lot easier talking to somebody who's genuinely interested and who genuinely wants that conversation, rather than somebody who's doing it with a kind of preconceived purpose in mind.
I would say I do endorse the idea of like not automatically changing your mind just because you were proven wrong on something, but evaluate why you seem to be proven wrong on it, and then coming back, because they may actually come up with a valid reason like, oh, you defeated this argument, but there was something valid here, and I misspoke, or I went down the wrong path on there. I do endorse, like if apologists were doing this honestly, and too many of them I see, there's nothing you can say that'll convince me that a God doesn't exist. If they say that, they're a lost cause. But if anybody's going into an honest way of discussion, like if anybody provided me with evidence that a God exists, I'd probably believe it. Good evidence, not just any evidence. You can't give me your Quran and say that's down. That's not going to be enough for me. But if you give me solid evidence, I'll believe. But if somebody comes to the other side of the conversation and says nothing you can say will make them change their mind, it's a conversation ender. I won't even deal with that kind of thing.
I think that's important too for those of us that are in this community to like, because if someone's being like an apologist, and because if someone comes to me with an argument that I don't have a good answer for, I'll be like, I don't know. I'm like, you give me some resources and, and give me more information on that, because I don't want to be dismissive. I might listen to the argument and be like, well, that has some quibbles. I don't really agree with that. That logical thinking doesn't parse out, but I'm willing to listen to it, and I'll go, I'm like, these were good points, but there was this other points that I have an issue with because this isn't square with, my perspective of things. Is there something else you can, and this is when I want to engage. Like sometimes I'm just like, I'm not going to watch a YouTube video, man, on this. Like, I don't care.
Usually they'll give you a 2-hour video that's full,
I'm like,
of wrong claims.
Listen, I have ADHD. Give me 15 minutes and get the PowerPoint, because I don't have the attention span to watch a 2-hour debate video. I just don't. I'm like, what are the key points in the video? Okay. Let's break it down, because I want to have a conversation about it, and the thing is though, is that if you can't bring your argument in like a few sentences that are very easy to sum up, that I have to watch a 2-hour fucking video, I don't want to have it, because I'm just like, this should be very simple.
Those tend to be a video gish gallop.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't have enough time to break down why every single claim in this 2-hour video is wrong. That's asking too much of anybody. Come in with one point and we'll go point by point. There's no reason why a 2-hour video is ever necessary. Learn each point. If there's 2 hours worth of points, go point by point, but don't just like watch this whole thing and then come talk to me about it. That's not
I'm not going to
real
do that.
conversation.
One, I don't have the time, and two, usually like within 10 minutes, I'm usually like, this argument's really bad and he's not a good presenter. I'm bored now. Like that's how I am. Because the thing is, so if I'm going to engage in a conversation with somebody, I don't want to engage in a video. I want to engage in the conversation that you want to have with me, because I can watch videos. I watch plenty of videos on my own free time all the time. Like me and my son were just having a conversation yesterday because I watched so much atheist content. I'm getting, religious ads before my YouTube video, like when I watch a YouTube video, and I'm just like, oh, okay. But like if I wanted to go onto YouTube and watch an apologist talk to me about like the resurrection, I could do that, but I don't want to because I've heard these arguments. What do you have to say about it? And let's have a conversation about it. And like when those of us are recovering religion, though, we're not debating really with people. We're just getting them to have the thought. Like it's okay to doubt. Like it's okay. Yeah. Like you're not going to burn in hell. Nobody's going to attack you. Like, why are you afraid of hell? And parse that out, because like there are people that have been out of religion for 10 years and are still afraid of going to hell because that fear response in the back of your reptilian brain is going to activate over and over again because you were taught that when you were like 5.
Yeah. And like that's going to be a strong emotional response to that. That's going to be going loud enough in your brain.
Right.
We're coming up to the end of the episode. Is there anything you want to get out there about recovering from religion that we haven't gotten to yet?
Yes. So I do want to point out that Kevin from Lots of the Valley is going to be doing a fundraiser for our international partners, all our international people for that side on November 12th. I will be on that podcast talking to Kevin. We're going to have a bunch of guests. We're going to have bingo where you can win prizes. So please tune into that. I will get more information to you guys to post on in the doobly doo about that. So that is something we have coming up on November 12th. Also, as well, if you need our services, please call 1-866-I-DOUBT-IT or go to recoveringfromreligion.org to talk with an agent. You can also schedule a call. So if for some reason, because of work or family, or you want some privacy, you can schedule a caller chat and an agent will get back to you. Go to our resource page. We just had the fall excursion. We're having another one next year, which I plan on going. So we have a bunch of stuff going on recovering from religion. So please check out our website, check out our resources. If you feel that you need us, please reach out. I've been with them for 2 years. I love volunteering for this organization. If I could get paid for it, I would, because if I would make my full-time job, but I got to make some money, and the atheist money is not going to pay the bills, but I love what I do for them.
We know that all too well.
Yeah, all the atheist money.
We need that in not God we trust on our bills.
And not God we trust. Yeah. So, but if you do need our services, please check us out or refer people to us that you feel would benefit, because there's some, I work with a bunch of wonderful volunteers that are wonderful, caring people. So if you need us, please check us out.
All right. Sounds great. And remember to keep questioning
and interrogate your beliefs
and stay skeptical. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.